Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. We have with us Sridhar C and we have a lot of things to talk about. And why is Russia suddenly warning Japan, South Korea, and also the latest situation on tariffs? This has been bandied about for a long time. We are close, we are close, we are close. What is it that is sticking up still? What are the unresolved issues? Is there going to be a mini deal? All this and more with Sridhar Chitalaji. Sridhar ji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel. How are you, sir?
Namaskar. Good morning to you, sir. Doing very well. Thank you so much. And as you correctly said, lots of things going on. And I think from an Indian point of view on the tariffs, it's very positive news. But let's just commence with the ASEAN situation. Sriji.
Thank you so much, sir. And a small request to all of you to like this video. We have some breaking news also that we are going to share. Sridharji, I leave the floor to you. Why is Russia getting its knickers in a twist, sir? There is no Russia's got its hands full dealing with Ukraine and Europe.
Well, I think there are two reasons. First and foremost, I think they're going to hear today, 10 a.m. US time, President Trump making the announcement that they're going to allow, some of the high-powered military equipment to be routed through NATO into Ukraine to defend itself against Russia. Which is why Mark Rutte is in White House, and he arrived over the weekend. And for this discussion, they're not going to deliver direct as it occurred during Biden administration, but they plan to divert the some of this machinery which they committed to Ukraine through NATO. Ukraine is still a little apprehensive. They want to wait and hear and see, but that's one of the first areas where Lavrov is, cheesed off or pissed off. He's made this statement against United States, which is to say, hey, we warned you. The second is that when Marco Rubio was over the weekend in Malaysia for the ASEAN meet, there was discussions taking place between Japan and South Korea to augment the security. Why? Because North Korea has supplied not only machinery and the military equipment as needed, it has also put manpower on ground in Russia. There is a fear that, there's not a fear, but there's a clear kind of apprehension that Russia is going to give all it requires for.
Well. Sir, go ahead, sir. We lost you for a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah. First for South Korea, South Korea to target North Korea, and obviously North Korea has been looking at Japan as well because there's a military collaboration. So this is the second reason that Russia has said.
Sir, back up, sir. Go back to Mark Rubio at ASEAN meeting with Japan and South Korea, because that's where we lost you. So please start from there, sir.
So Marco Rubio met with, not only had discussions with Japan and South Korea, but he had meetings with Lavrov in Malaysia. He had discussions with Lavrov, and one of the topics that featured was Russia, Ukraine, and of course North Korea and the regional security. Lavrov had just met with his counterpart in a remote island in North Korea, and he was making his way from there. So it's quite possible that the North Korea-Russia discussions focused on some of the issues that could potentially emanate from Japan and South Korea as North Korea saber rattles, when things kind of hot up. When will things hot up? The things are going to hot up as soon as Russia, as soon as President Trump announces today, as we mentioned earlier, at 10 a.m., I think, U.S. time, that he is going to use NATO to supply arms to Ukraine to defend itself against Russia. So he's saying that there are two possibilities. One is that you are supplying to Ukraine. Second, what prevents you from, doing the same and more of it to Japan and South Korea to threaten North Korea? As a reciprocal gesture. Everybody knows, and this has been covered by several people, that North Korea has not only put boots on ground in Russia to fight the Ukrainians, but also they have been supplying military equipment and also ammunition to Russia, which is depleting as a result of the war. So this is exactly the reason why he wanted to take a shot at United States at the first opportunity at the meet that occurred in over the weekend, Sriji.
Thank you so much, sir. Now let's take a look at tariffs. Tariffs are also being levied on Japan and South Korea, considered to be very close allies of United States. So let's take a quick look at what is happening on the latest one. Go to the next slide, please. Sir.
Well, I think that this is about ASEAN, G. Okay, this is the trade wars will come.
Yeah, let's finish this and then go to that, sir. Yeah.
So it's an amazing thing is that US and China both claimed that they had very positive dialogue, at the summit. Well, who else but Dr. Wang Yi, the wolf diplomat from China, was at the meeting, and he was the first to fire the shot, which is to say we have had a successful meeting. Tariffs that US is imposing around the world is not according to the rules of the world trade. It is very economic disruptive. So therefore, we need to re-strengthen our partnerships. This was his message to the ASEAN nations. And on the contrary, the US has said that, look, let's focus beyond the tariffs in terms of what the broad engagement between US and ASEAN has been, over the years. Now, just to give you, we have covered this before, but just to put things in perspective, the China-ASEAN trade is almost close to $1 trillion, 1 trillion bilateral trade, okay? And of which China exports $587 billion of lots of stuff from, from materials, cars, electricity supplies, all of those kinds of things gets supplied to ASEAN. From ASEAN in turn, China imports close to $396 billion worth of supplies. So what's the trade difference between US or between China and ASEAN is $191 billion in favor of China. Okay, a lot of the equipment that flows through ASEAN goes under the surreptitious route of exports into United States, particularly automobiles and electronics and chemicals and fertilizers. So therefore, you have a problem in this particular trade, but where China successfully uses ASEAN as its conduit. This is exactly what the tariffs are focusing on. This is also focusing on no more question of anybody using this circuitous route to come into United States, when effectively, these tariffs are established to circumnavigate or circumvent these kinds of issues. So, $1 trillion worth of trade between China, and there is a $200 billion imbalance in terms of exports to imports. Now, if more of imports are going to emanate from China into ASEAN, what would it do to the economies which also are low labor economies like Thailand, like Vietnam, like Malaysia, etc.
Cambodia.
Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. So there is a big question mark around this whole concept of how China is such a strategic or enhanced strategic player. Now, let's get to the security arrangement. There is no China ASEAN security arrangement in place. They don't participate. They don't have a defined agreement. They participate in many forums. What are the main issues? The main issues are sovereignty of South China Sea Islands, where there is border dispute with Malaysia, there's border dispute with Indonesia, there's a border dispute with even Brunei, and there's a significant dispute with Philippines where they constantly clash, the Chinese Navy and the Chinese Coast Guard and the Philippines. So even on the security side, China has some issues, but they say that they will try to resolve using bilateral discussions. This is the kind of the focus of the chat between Dr. Wang Yi and the ASEAN ministers. And also, when you take a look at the United States has got a defined strategic partnership with Singapore, Philippines, and Thailand. There is a very clearly defined security partnership with these three nations. While there is no overarching security relationship with ASEAN, ASEAN tries to reach out to US through various forums in terms of making sure that there is a what you call security-free navigation through South China Sea, which is home to many things. There is also another dispute which we have covered is the Mekong River Valley. Mekong River actually powers the agriculture of 5 countries: Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam. But Mekong River originates right up in the Himalayas in the Chinese region, and they have been harvesting, and in the process there has been progressive drying up of the rivers, the Mekong River, as it flows downstream. By the time it comes to Thailand, there's almost, especially in the non-rainy season, it's pretty much dried up, and the Thai farmers who plant rice are impacted. Again, we have covered this in detail. So when you look at even this, none of these topics were discussed, but it was swept under and said bilateral discussions would solve these problems. So both sides claim victory here, and what the victory definition of this victory is unknown. It seems like all of these issues were left intact. There was no specific resolution passed by ASEAN except to say that we'll kind of work together to commonly address the issues that commonly affect us. Of course, tariffs was the other one which came up, and both sides want to expand the trade. Remember that there is significant amount of tariffs imposed on all ASEAN countries. The only country that has worked out a negotiation with US is Vietnam.
Sir, Vietnam, let's get to that, because one of the questions that keeps coming up again and again is China to US 55%. Okay, that's right up here. Now, US, let's keep it constant. This is my left hand is US, right hand US. Vietnam is at 30%. So there is a 25% differential. The question that everybody is saying is, China will send the product through Vietnam and get that benefit of 25%. There should be a way that United States can catch the original source of manufacture. How do you think US is going to catch that?
Well, I think the US is going to assess the source of raw materials. This is where they're going to go and look at the supply chains before they determine how exactly they would apply tariffs against specific products. And I think that this is why this complicates the problem in terms of the definition of how certain categories are going to be applied this extra tariff. What the US has come up with is, we have a very good view as to what is built in Vietnam, for example, automobiles. We have a very good view on what is sourced from other nations and it is built. So this is where these trade flows that occur between various nations, which in turn flows into United States, is going to be assessed. They have already done work. United States has already done extensive work on Canada and Mexico. Remember, we covered this as to what is being supplied into Canada, into Mexico, especially in automobiles, and how that is getting flown into United States. Close to $1.2 trillion of deficit that United States has is between two countries, which is namely Canada and Mexico. And much of it, about 35% of those exports which are flowing in from Mexico, is attributed to the Chinese supply. So they have done a fair amount of work. United States has done a fair amount of work. I'm talking about Lighthizer and Peter Navarro and these guys who have been looking at this trade flow chains, and they have done work. And this is why they've also warned India that if you're going to have Vietnamese equipment and Chinese equipment going to come through India into United States, that is going to be applied the same tariff. Okay, so therefore, they are now going into the trade chains and trade flows, Sriji, in terms of specific domains.
Thank you so much, sir. And viewers, just to let you know, Canada and Mexico are looking at 30% tariffs right now. So everything is sort of coming around that 30%, with the extra 20% on China for their lack of First of all, they have to admit that they are the producers of fentanyl. They are not doing that. See, I don't buy one of these things, sir. Many American pundits will tell, oh, culturally China is different, that you can't tell it to their face that you are a cheat, you are a crook, you are a liar, you are a thief. You have to say it in a nice way. What China needs is a nice whack on its bottom, not nice culturally couched words. The reason I say that is because look at how they have been expanding in all these shoals in the South China Sea.
Exactly.
Taking Philippines on. Sir, you and I, we have done so much work on all these things. Look, what you may not like what Trump says some days, you may not like look at what Trump is doing. And I think there's a method to this madness, especially in the tariffs thing. And unless China really cramps down and stops this fentanyl stuff, I mean, they are trying to wipe out a generation of United States youth. Which part of this don't the people understand? I'm talking about Americans, my brothers and sisters. Which part of it don't you understand? Don't you see your children just getting wasted away from fentanyl? This needs to be stopped. Big time. So just my 2 cents on this. So let's go on to the next topic. So we have done US, Russia, you have done US, China. Let's go to the third slide, please.
Yeah, that's done.
We are done with this one. Next one. Yes, sir. Yes. We have done this also. Yeah.
Yeah, we have done, but it's important to point out that it's 30% on EU and Mexico, but they've given a little bit of time window to see this is the August 1st. If they don't close by August 1st, I think that 30% will remain. I believe EU will come back to the table. And actually, even same, for example, Japan, South Korea, and South Africa, they are somewhere between 25 and 40%. I think Japan has not relented. Let's see what happens. Brazil is 50%, and there's a lot of countries in that 40-50% range. We are doing some work on what is a positive impact as a result of these tariffs for India, but we'll cover that in the next show, but not yet. We haven't finished, and it could contribute. India can leverage this opportunity, and it could add between 0.7% to 1% of India's GDP, harnessing those routes, harnessing those traded items going from India rather than those nations which are going to be subjected to significant tariff.
Sir, we have talked about this also.
Yes. There is going to be an announcement. Watch out. And I think it's very interesting. This is a very clear change of direction from President Trump. He tried his best with Vladimir Putin, and I don't think that's worked out. Now he's saying, okay, we are going to, you're not listening, and we'll try to now protect Ukraine, and we'll supply them, but we're not going to give them direct. We don't trust. We'll route it through NATO. Yes, India-Russia imports reach all-time high, while the discussions go on between US and India on tariffs. One of these areas is obviously energy. Just to give you a perspective, India, Russia, Russian exports or Russian imports is about 1.67 million barrels a day in the first half of the year. Now, in June, this shot up to about 2.07 million barrels. That's very interesting because 1.67 million is very small nudge when you compare to the last year, which is 2023. This is 2024 in the first half. This is 2025 numbers. So is India was pressure being applied by Russia to take additional at some discount, and they increased, and India said, you're giving me at a discount, I'll take it, to bring that number to almost even parity of 1.67 million barrels a day to 1.66 million barrels a day last year. In the same period, it's very interesting to see how these things, it's all averaged, so this works out. While during the same period, the imports from United States increased by 50% relative to 2024. And how much is that? 271,000 barrels. So where is 271,000 barrels and where is 1.67 million barrels a day? So this has given enough room on the deficit side, on the trade deficit side, for India and US to negotiate and say, okay, here's my kind of books. Now you tell me, are you going to give me oil at this price? Then I'll buy. And then you can reduce my trade deficit. So I have to get something back in return. So we already have seen movement in the first half of this year on the oils that are getting imported from United States, and they increased by 50%. So if they add another 271 or 280 or 300 million barrels a day, and if the refiners are prepared to accept it, which they have in the past during the 2016 to 20 period, then you will begin to see, you can see it's a slam dunk in terms of India reducing the deficit and getting into a kind of the two specific areas or three specific areas. I think one of them is obviously agro and the other is dairy. Now, you asked a question, is there an interim deal? Yes, there is an interim deal, and the interim deal could be coming this week between India and United States on the tariffs, and the tariffs could actually come down to below 20%. So the negotiations are going very well, and people economically are factoring in. That's why we are saying that there's also opportunities for India in a GDP sense, and India could be in one of the lowest tariff categories, getting below the 20% from the current 25%, and even go further down. Shriji.
Next one, please. So I think we touched about these numbers. Now let's just take a quick step back. So the sticking point we all know is GMO, genetically modified foods, as well as dairy products in which there is an apprehension that animal fat could be added. So these are the two things that India is objecting to. And I can see why. I mean, they have good reasons to do that. And India's agriculture employs 50% of its workforce. If cheap GMO seeds come in, it's going to be very difficult to come out of it, because India will lose its original seeds, which gave a certain flavor. Chhattisgarh, for example, has some of the best varieties of rice for flavor. I'm not talking about basmati. There are also basic flavors in rice itself. That itself is different. We don't eat all the different types of rice to understand the difference and nuances, but those who are in the field, they know that there are specific varieties. So I can understand beyond this. If I think US can get parity in terms of import-exports with India, just taking care of the low-hanging fruit, which in my opinion is crude. Once you use energy to bring parity, a lot of other things can move forward. I don't think that's a big hindrance, because India needs this deal. And viewers, I'm going to give you a separate monologue how China is literally abusing India. This particular Twitter handle is banned in India, so you don't get to see the vitriol being poured on India. I'm going to share that with you, and I'm 100% sure they'll try to shadow ban it. Doesn't matter. Some of the things that you need to understand how much of an offensive China is mounting against India, verbally and non-verbally, also using its lackeys. So it's going on. Sir, in fact, Iran had to come out and say that these are not our handles. Iran was also being used to bash India. Did you know that story, sir? Iran has officially come out and said.
Yes. There's as you rightly pointed out, we didn't put this. Sree is going to do a monologue. There are several formats that China is using. We are just going to touch one of them. Social media handles. I'm going to mention a publication which is Nikkei, which is very popular. Nikkei has even published a story about Rafale. Okay, and the French have come out and rebutted that this information that is being propagated is erroneous and incorrect. And Nikkei didn't even bother to take out the story. Now, Nikkei is Japanese, but they have a very powerful, influential arm through the Chinese. It's almost like a propaganda machine. So you have a variety of ways by which, as not only Twitter handles, but also media. They're using media to come at India. Okay, the one that we're going to specifically mention now is that over the last 2 to 3 months, using the supply chain, some of the important agro fertilizers which India is reliant on has been stopped. the ports in China have not shipped those fertilizers. No reason has been given. The same fertilizers are going to countries such as Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and so on, but they have been told to halt the supplies to India, targeting the agro security or the food security of the Indian market. They have done something similar on the industrial side, notably on the electronic inputs that India needs. Now, the question is next, they also did this with those magnets, which are required for the EV, which prompted Indian Prime Minister to make a statement that China is weaponizing trade as a weapon to effectively come after certain countries, which doesn't toe the line. Okay, Sree pointed out from a US point of view what China has been attempting to do, not only banish many of the industries, but also target directly the population through fentanyl. Okay, so it's not that this country plays the game straight. The whole CCP, which runs China, have used these types of guerrilla tactics in terms of focusing on countries. All of this is coming out. And there's another story which Sree may cover as well about what is going on in Manipur and what is the kind of mispropaganda that China is spreading through Manipur. Okay, so
sir, we have done a little bit of coverage. Thank you, sir. We have already done a little bit of coverage with 𝗍𝗏 and there is also this operation that took place yesterday, wiping out many leaderships of 2 terrorist organizations. We will give you that also shortly. Just stay tuned on that. We are putting out a lot of important information, viewers. Some of you may say, well, too much stuff is coming. Unfortunately, world is moving at a higher pace because, in my opinion, China is on the precipice of just completely falling, and that's why this extra emphasis to try and somehow stop India. So, sir, we have a couple of questions, I think, from our viewers, and we can take those and then we can wrap it up. Srinivasan Iyengar wants to know, Chitalaji, wait. How long we have to wait India-US trade deal? Where is the deadlock? Thank you. I think we have covered this, sir. If you want to add anything more, please feel free.
I think we will see a deal this week, Sriji.
Yeah. Next one, Simple in Virtue wants to know, the source of the Mekong is from Tibetan Plateau. Why do you think China is controlling Tibet? If one is intelligent enough, you will know the answer.
Well, I think that they have been this is a policy which is very well known, namely that you use, the concept is not carrot and stick, you use stick and stick to make sure that the nations toe the line. South China Sea has been the main issue that has throttled Chinese advancement to control all the navigation that take place in South China Sea. At least 3 of the countries in the 5-nation Mekong Delta are part of the dispute in the South China Sea. So this is the method by which you want to now threaten me in South China Sea, which I am trying to control, which legitimately belongs to me. And now I will apply what I need to apply in terms of making sure that that you are starved. So this, again, we covered extensively this story as to how systematically they have been playing this role. Also, that they want to, food security is a big issue for China itself. So they also want to make sure that they protect the food, they protect their kind of requirements by strangulating some of these countries. So it is very well known why they are doing it. It is a stick and stick approach in terms of their ability to overarchingly control every part of the value chain.
Sir, you and I did a very detailed analysis of the Mekong River from the source all the way to the destination. We did this thing about 4 years ago, viewers. I don't think PGurus has left anything untouched. I mean, we have done Brahmaputra with General Ravi Shankar, and Mekong was done with Sridhar Ji. We told you about all the different dams that China was building to limit even the little water that is flowing beyond its boundaries into the other countries. We've said all these things. So please do take a look at that and you'll understand. Sir?
Yeah, with pictures. With pictures.
Yes, with pictures. Yes. Milburn Cherian wants to know, has India not stored its original seeds like heirloom seeds? It's at the farmer level. I don't think India stores them at the food corporation level. I think it's the farmers that do that. This is a tradition that everybody does, right? I don't know, sir. You have the answer to this?
No, I think that there is no, only subsidies are given. I don't think they do the distribution of centrally procure and do the distribution of the seeds. No.
Yeah, Milburn, my impression of how this is done is farmers know, when they plant the seeds, right, inside the entire thing, they know a particular area where the yield is better. They can look at the crop and tell, okay, this seed and this combination, whatever we have done, has given the most amount of yield. So the best of that is taken and kept for next harvest. Now with GMO, all this goes out the window. You'll have to keep buying seeds every year. Not only that, GMO requires a different type of fertilizer. There are lots of ecological concerns about this. And it's also a fact that your native varieties will just die, completely die. You can't compete against GMO. So there are many issues there. Let's see how this plays out. Ramesh wants to know, any laws in USA about disclosure of GMO ingredients in food items and non-food items? Don't consumers have a right to know?
No, I think all of the sources are published. Yes, that as per the Food and Drug Food FAO, they have to put the labels behind. All of the labels carry very specific sources. There's no way. So it is done in the United States.
And Ramesh, things like grapes, oranges, they are all seedless now. How did that happen? Yeah. Just ask you a simple question. Yes, it is an inconvenience to spit out the seeds, but the seed is the one that gave birth to the fruit, and in turn the fruit gives the seed, which again you have to replant to get the next fruit. You get the idea, sir. Very interesting topic about it.
Yeah, it's all about preserving the green ecosystem, Sree.
Yes, very true. So wonderful session, sir. Thank you so much. Viewers will be back again next week with Sridhar C. 𝗤𝗪𝗖𝗏. He's a young man who travels the world. Ulagam Sutrum Valiban, and safe travel, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day, Sree.